This is a nuclear power plant that cost $9 billion. It never produced a single watt of electricity. Not one. Two reactors. Half built, then abandoned and left to rust. And the people in charge? Some of them went to prison because this wasn't just a failure, it was a lie. One that you, the customer, paid for. This is the story of the most expensive hole in the ground in American history, and how millions of ordinary people got the bill for a power plant that never switched on. Picture the promise. It's the late 2000s. Two South Carolina utilities announced something bold. The first new nuclear reactors built in the United States in decades. Two gleaming units at the VC summer site. Clean power for millions of homes. A new nuclear age. The price tag, around $10 billion. Big, but doable. And it would be worth it. Now here's where it gets personal. Because of a law passed in 2007, the utility was allowed to do something extraordinary. It could charge its customers for the plant while it was still being built, before a single watt was produced. Read that again. You were paying, on your monthly power bill, for a plant that didn't exist yet. All the risk of this giant project quietly shifted off the company and onto you. And every year that bill climbed and climbed. How did it go so wrong? That's what we're going to follow. And we're not guessing at any of it. The FBI, the SEC, and federal prosecutors ran a multi-year investigation. There were guilty pleas, prison sentences. Everything you're about to hear came out under oath on the public record. Let's start with the building itself. Construction began in 2013, and almost immediately it was a mess. The prefabricated parts, the huge pieces meant to slot together like a kit, arrived made wrong. The backup batteries, the ones that keep a reactor safe in an emergency, were built for the wrong electrical current. The massive transformers were configured incorrectly. Over 5,000 workers were on site, and again they were left standing around or forced to redo work they'd already finished. And here's a detail that should sound familiar. Investigators found that unlicensed workers had been drawing up critical engineering blueprints without a qualified professional engineer signing off, as state law required. The takeaway is one we keep seeing. On these giant projects, the basics get skipped. Everyone assumes someone else checked, and nobody did. As the errors piled up, the cost estimate didn't just grow, it exploded. From around $10 billion, it climbed toward an estimated $25 billion to actually finish. The main contractor, Westinghouse, was so buried by the losses here and at a second nuclear project that it filed for bankruptcy in 2017. The whole thing was collapsing. And this is where the failure becomes a crime. Because the executives knew. They knew the plant was hopelessly behind schedule. They knew it almost certainly wouldn't be finished in time to qualify for over $1 billion in federal tax credits. Credits the whole project depended on. And they hit it. According to prosecutors, they kept telling regulators and investors the project was on track. One insider later described how executives would fly around the country showing the same construction photos from different angles, making it look like progress. While behind the scenes, the project was going up in flames. Why lie? Because the truth was expensive. Admitting the project was doomed would sink the stock, block the rate increases, and end the flow of money. So instead, they kept the story going. They kept raising your rates. They sold over $1 billion in bonds, all while knowing the reactors would probably never run. The takeaway here is the darkest one on this channel. Sometimes a mega project doesn't just fail. Sometimes the people running it decide to lie about it and let the public keep paying. So how did it end? On July 31st, 2017, they pulled the plug. The project was abandoned. Two half-finished reactors left standing. Over 5,000 people lost their jobs almost overnight, and not 1 watt of power was ever produced. But the customers? They didn't stop paying. Thanks to that 2007 law, people kept seeing charges on their power bills for the reactors that were never built. Billions of dollars for nothing. And then slowly, the reckoning came. The former chief executive of the parent company was sentenced to 2 years in federal prison. The former chief operating officer got 15 months. 2 executives from the contractor were charged too. One of them, the final defendant, sentenced years later. Fraud, conspiracy, lying to investigators. This wasn't spun as bad luck anymore. Courts called it what it was. So let's add it all up. A nuclear plant that promised clean power for millions. Around $9 billion spent, with over $10 billion gone once you count the interest. Two reactors that never produced a single watt. 5,000 jobs lost, executives in prison, and millions of ordinary customers still paying the bill for a plant that will never exist. The people who got hurt weren't the ones who made the decisions. They were the families in South Carolina, quietly paying a few dollars more every month for a nuclear age that never arrived. And the pattern is the same one we see again and again. Promise the world, shift the risk onto the public, hide the truth when it starts to fail. And when it all collapses, the people at the top walk away, while everyone else pays. So, a $9 billion nuclear plant, two reactors, 0 watts, abandoned and left to rust, executives in prison, and a bill that landed, as it always does, on the public. Billions promised, billions gone, and this is far from the only one. All over the world, governments and companies have built things that swallowed fortunes and delivered nothing. Airports that couldn't open, trains that ran for weeks, plants that never switched on. We're working through every one of them. So if you want the next story, subscribe. Because the money is always promised, and the question is always the same: where did it go?